Da-dum, 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 da-dum. What's that sound? Is it my heart or is it the drums of war? Because war has been declared between Leenock and PuppyPaw. And Leenock, he's the first one to lose an arm. PuppyPaw draws first blood in this best of 3. But it's not over yet. Looking to bounce back, we hop into map number 2, where it will be the Chinese versus the Mongols here on Boulder Bay. Leenock playing for his round 2 life. He can't afford to drop this. And PuppyPaw, he's got to be feeling confident. He got his hands on the powerful Chinese, but up against a Chinese specialist, I don't think it's going to be as easy as he's expecting. Let's see what he can do as we hop into game number 2. Let me just update that. Maybe a lot of people. Oh, no, I baited you. That's not the right score. A lot of people right now, they're like, Leenock, Pog, leading the series. No. Leenock is straggling behind. He's stuck in the mud here. As PuppyPaw, a dominant opening with game 1 here. Leenock needs to strike back. And he's going to go for what's looking quickly like the most popular pick on Boulder Bay in this off-meta combat tournament. It is, of course, the Mongols. I'll see what he can do, though. I mean, this is one of those situations where you got to question, does he go for the Uvu or does he go for the Dock? And straight away we get the answer. Leenock doesn't even opt to go into the Uvu early on. This has been a switch up I've been seeing a lot more, actually, in this tournament so far. It used to be, even if you're on a Water Hybrid map, even on Boulder Bay, Mongol players would opt for the Uvu. In fact, I believe Beastie still frequently does this. He goes for the Uvu first, and then the Dock afterwards. The whole idea is it delays your timing slightly, but realistically, you're going to gain something elsewhere. You gain the ability to outpost rush. So if you ever see an opponent drop an Uvu on Boulder Bay, they're probably looking to drop an outpost in your base. Looks like Leenock isn't choosing that option. Instead, he's going to scale his economy, and then he'll shift into a quicker feudal timing as a result. And it makes sense as well. Like, you're up against the Chinese. Leenock knows this Civ inside out. It might be a little bit too difficult to shut them down. Also, their economy is quite efficient at this stage due to supervision, giving them 20% drop-off on any type of resource they choose. So instead, he's just going to optimize his own economy because the real strong point for the Mongols is usually going into Castle Age. Castle Age unlocks so much potency for you. And you can't rely on the traditional timings for Boulder Bay that you would as the Mongols when you're in this matchup. As both of you have access to the same ships, you can't just say, War Junks make me dominant, or Bao Chads make me dominant. Both sides can build them. And in fact, the Chinese outdo you due to their better production speed of 20% increased. So your better play, if you're Leenock in this situation, is probably to play towards a fast castle and then look to aggress on sea while also double producing lancers. We'll see if that's the option he goes for, though. I think it's a very solid option. It's usually what we see out of a lot of Mongol players. Like, that's when you come online. Castle unlocks so much potency due to the fact that you're able to gather 50% more gold with your step readouts. So far, PuppyPaw, am I mistaken, or is that there's no Imperial officials? The first one's coming out. I think this was delayed by the choice to go Dock, right? Because that's 150 wood, then 75 wood as well. But now he's going to actually make this a lot more efficient. This is really important as well because it just allows you to push out so many fishing boats. Remember, like we already highlighted, your docks are more efficient, right? When we look at on this side, we see 25 seconds for a fishing boat. It's only 20 for the Chinese, which means you do need additional wood, which is where the Imperial official comes in with his supervisor giving an additional 20% resource on drop-off to the building they're supervising. Oh. And even if Leenock gets forced off water, I mean, he has a lot of sheep to work with. Someone we didn't even look at, actually, is the Gaia spawn. This is... What? These spawns are so... They're so ridiculous now. It's like the devs have been looking and they're like, will you guys just please stop building fishing boats? Look at the boar. Look at the deer. Look at the deer. Look at the deer. Look at all this. There's so much food. Just take it. Please stop building fish, okay? The sushi diet was all the rage a few years back, but now it's all about some prime rib. Come on. And I wouldn't be surprised if Leenock does potentially play onto that. Like, remember, the boar gathering rates is very competitive. The only thing that's going to beat it out, of course, being deep water fish. But it's a fallback plan, right? And it's a fallback plan that's just out of range of the coast, so it's unlikely that PuppyPaw would be able to deny him from gathering there. So overall, this generation is really good for Leenock. Between that and the double gold vein, and then, of course, the back Uvus, like, there's a lot of beneficial things if he has to fall back onto land. Meanwhile, when we look at PuppyPaw's base, he got a reasonable generation. Like, I think you do benefit from a lot of farmland if you have to fall back to that. But I think more important for him is just going to be this play onto the sea. You can see he's dropping the barbing straight away. This should fall back to an Imperial Academy play later on, just so you're able to get the increased production rate from Song Dynasty. But this is actually a phenomenal defense because it now means that Leenock can't aggress him in Feudal Age. Remember that this defense does bonus damage against ships, so his fishing eco is more or less protected now. Meanwhile, Scout's just trying to stop this. It's so frustrating, actually, when you play against the Chinese. You can be as quick as you want, but it's so hard to deny them putting these defenses up. Even if 1PuppyPaw had not pulled 5 villages, remember that Chinese build their landmarks, as with all buildings, quicker than other civs. So it's very hard to deny a tech up with just your Scout and a Khan. And also, 1PuppyPaw is going to take note of this. He just saw that his opponent has a Scout and a Khan, which means that he likely stopped production on villages to invest in an extra Scout. As you can see there, right? In fact, when you look at it, 1PuppyPaw is just booming ahead. And right now, a lot of people are going to look at those eco numbers going, wait, when did Leenock lose eco? Has he not been building village all the time? He has. It's just that he's up against the Chinese fishing. And as we already highlighted, you build them every 20 seconds compared to 25. Although Leenock has now gone up to 2 docks, he's still behind. Like, when we look at the count, it's 8 versus the 7. And here we go. Junk's now coming out. Now, this is the difference between these two civs. Everything past this point is, like, mostly the same. You have got a few techs that are different on the sea. But in terms of what units you can produce, it's the same, right? War junks, explosive junks, battle trance. But in this situation, junks versus light junks is an interesting matchup. The junks, in theory, should be better in 1v1s, right? It's 4 times 8 damage, which ends up being 32, compared to the bursts of 3, which comes out of 30. However, it's more bursts. It's less damage, which means this light junk is reducing each of those shots by 3, which means your overall damage goes down to 20. Meanwhile, these light junks, which deal 30 damage total in 3 bursts, they're still doing 24 damage. So even in a one-on-one, the only advantage that junks get is they have more health. The issue, however, is they also cost more. Wait, don't? No, they don't. Words, my brain. They cost the same, but I believe they're slower. Yeah, 1.5 compared to the 1.60. Also, it's the turn rate, right? That's the more frustrating thing. I would need to check the official numbers, but every time I watch this, I feel like the junks turn slower than the light junks. And this advantage used to be more absurd. Like, I will highlight that the junks, or light junks rather, and the Rus archer ships did get nerfed by the changes. For those that haven't played since the patch, a big change to Naval is your troops cannot move while firing. So these light junks, or rather archer ships, can't move while firing. So these have to park and then fire. This was actually a really big nerf to 360 unit, 360 firing arc units, words. Meanwhile, it's actually a big buff to junks and galleys, because junks and galleys already were forced to fire ahead of them. Now it's even the ground which was clearly in favor of like light junks and whatever, because it meant before when you ran away, your opponent could actually outmass you, outspeed you, and just drive by on you. And also, like, if they really want to screw with you, they could just keep turning around you. I've actually seen a player before just turn quicker than the opponent's galley could, so he just kept staying out of the arc as he just drove circles around him. It was so depressing to watch. So, now, with all that out of the way, it is time to zoom up. Both players having the same goal in mind, but 1PuppyPaw, of course, having a quicker access point here. Also, in terms of investment, there is more aggressive investment on Sieve by Leenock. 1PuppyPaw went a little bit lighter, and that's why he has a quicker tech up. But now, Leenock's going to make up that difference. Now, he won't be able to tech up as quickly as 1PuppyPaw, because remember that the Chinese build up faster, but he gets more value out of his initial tech up in terms of landmark value. This astronomical clock tower isn't going to do much for 1PuppyPaw in the first few minutes. It's not going to be Puppy Power. Leenock, on the other hand, is instantly going to gain so much out of this step readout. He already has a gold vein parked right next to him, and then a secondary one just off to the side. And then when he has to shift south, it's not too far off. He has very optimized eco lines, so it means that he actually has a lot less downtime when he shifts these step readouts from one gold line to the other. This is ideal. You're always looking for the optimal route when you build step readout. You want to minimize the distance from vein to vein to ensure that you're maximizing your income due to the less idle time of your villages. Look at this raid in. 1PuppyPaw, you sneaky goose. So he will move in. Needs to be careful with the TC, but he's just trying to harass and deny the marketplace because he now understands that PuppyPaw with this tech up will have surplus gold they will need to exchange for other resources. War Junk's coming out first, and this is the concern, right? PuppyPaw beats you to the punchline. It's double dock on double dock. And then once again, we get into this difference, which now even feels bigger. War Junk every 37 seconds versus War Junk every 45 seconds. That's also why he denied the marketplace going up. Like, he understands that Leenock's going to be stretched to have the right amount of people in gold and wood. Ideally, he would like a situation where he can initially get 1 or 2, maybe even 3 trades for gold to wood, because that's when the numbers are good on the marketplace at the beginning. But just by stopping that marketplace up, it actually slows down the production rate, and you can see the effect of it already. This second War Junk isn't being readied by Leenock. He only gets 1 out, and now it's 3 versus 1. Second one being produced. Leenock benefiting from all of these random pieces of crap in the way, right? The dock, the fishing boats. It means that PuppyPaw can't ideally cycle charge on this War Junk. However, right now, Leenock is refusing to move out. It looks like it's just frightening. Like, stay away from me. I see you. That means Leenock is sacrificing a lot of fishing boats while doing nothing with this first junk. I just love how deceitful these names are, by the way. Like, we really highlight that the light junks are really good. War junks are phenomenal. They are the best Castle Age unit. And they're called junks. Why? That doesn't... It just does not make sense. Free villager. PuppyPaw can afford these, I remember. Because he has got a more efficient economy with the Imperial officials and the size of his fishing fleet. He hasn't gone for Imperial Academy, surprisingly, though. Feels like it would be worth going back for sometime soon. But I think his concern now is because Leenock is up in Castle, he might transition into land aggression. So he's a little bit paranoid that if he chooses to float 600 resource into an Imperial Academy, he's going to leave himself a lot weaker. Look at this. PuppyPaw. It's like, no. Just in case you plan to use that Uvu, I'm just going to park an outpost here. And Leenock, he does just about see this, but he can't do anything. Leenock's being very greedy. He's only now getting his first stable units out. It's going to be the Lancer being pulled. The question is whether it's going to be quick enough to stop the villager. In fact, it's not, because he goes after the horseman instead. Oh, this is to the benefit of PuppyPaw. So outpost will go up. That's going to be a little bit of a frustrating situation. It means he can't easily shift across the Uvu. Like, mainly, I think the concern about this isn't that the outpost is going to kill him, right? It's the outpost is going to reveal what he's doing next. This is why PuppyPaw done it. Like, he doesn't have a scout in the front line, but now he has this annoying outpost poking and prodding, which is also giving alerts over Leenock all the time. But it's also feeding back information. However, information a little bit too late. Lancer's in. Spearman now coming out from PuppyPaw. Easily sidestepped, and no textiles on these villages. This is where PuppyPaw is going to start to get punished for the fact that he didn't go for Imperial Academy. Stealth Force actually working really well for PuppyPaw there. That was a misplay by Leenock. He didn't understand where they were. Remember that he doesn't have his Khan here. His Khan, in fact, just got sniped down as well. And because the Khan was split off from the group, it means he didn't see what was coming. This is the importance of keeping Khan or Scout in the front line. Give vision around these areas. It's critical with these Stealth Forests. Otherwise, it costs you dearly, as the Spearmen do find their bang for buck. It looks like the fishing eco has really slowed down on both sides. So 8 on one side, now up to 10 again for Leenock. Now remember, Leenock did lose a few fishing boats, so he's reinvesting here. My concern is he has better gold eco, and we're kind of seeing this effect. I'm very surprised that PuppyPaw didn't go in for the Imperial Academy still, or secondary TC. It has put him behind in the production rates, because although he can produce these war junks quicker, he can't afford them at the same pace as Leenock. And you see it there, right there. That's a huge difference. Doubling up in the gold department, and also the wood as well. It means, if anything, Leenock could potentially go for a third dock, and yeah, he has. So he's just outmassing. I feel PuppyPaw is going to be forced off of the sea in the next 2 to 3 minutes. He doesn't really have a transition prep for on land. He's already begun walling himself in, but there's no secondary TC, there's no Imperial Academy, and Leenock already has a force on land as well, so you can't just aggress in easily. And yeah, now the racks with man-at-arms coming out, and because you went spears to counter the Lancers, you don't even have the benefit of Palace Guard to raid past your opponents. Instead, Spearmen are going to be slower than the man-at-arms. In the meantime, more junks fighting. Heavy damage done. Nice shots coming out from PuppyPaw. Leenock quick to peel off, and it looks like he did go for the movement speed, something that PuppyPaw doesn't have, so no pursuit. The difference maker really is how much Leenock can afford to replace these losses. It's at a rate that PuppyPaw can't easily contend with. Villagers get the Lancer. Get the Lancer. Get the shivs out, boys. Stab him down, then check his pockets. He's probably got some gold in there. Evu now being burned. A little bit frustrating for Puppy. PuppyPaw. The reason this is frustrating is like he can get these outposts, but Leenock is already dealing with the problem. Like the man-at-arms are coming. And these outposts are kind of going to be trivial in terms of an answer to the problem. Not to mention the fact that Leenock is doing all this while continuing to scale his naval force. His naval force that is starting to outnumber you. Like, you're at 7 right now. Leenock keeps jumping the gun. Should he wait another 2 minutes, he's going to clearly have more junks on the sea than PuppyPaw will. Of course, we got to remember, this is easy for me to say with God Vision, right? At the end of the day, Leenock is playing a little bit blind. The card only just shifted across again. He will get eyeballs in this factor. The issue that now Leenock has is because he brought an inferior count of war junks to the fight, he's going to get baited by the fishing boats and the structures. He wants to maximize damage, and it looks like PuppyPaw is allowing that. Shifts back, trying to micro correctly. Front ship is going to go down for Leenock. Second one heavily damaged. The trace now starting to come out. Heavy damage being done to PuppyPaw. And this movement speed advantage is allowing him to actually switch over quicker. It's giving him the edge, and it means that Leenock is taking good trades here. PuppyPaw does have the lead in terms of counts, but he started that way as well. And Leenock evens it up. It's now going to be 3 versus 3, but more war junks quickly coming out from Leenock. And it feels like a bait. PuppyPaw now out of position will be wrapped upon by the superior movement speed of Leenock's fleet. He needs to get out fast. These trades are not good anymore. They're starting to sting him a little. Tries to finish off an additional war junk, but he's getting baited. The shot's going out into the fishing boats instead. That means Leenock is now starting to get in control here. War junk count is depleting. PuppyPaw, he's struggling to have the surplus to replace what is falling here. And now look at the switch up. PuppyPaw is switching into the explosive junks. He doesn't really have any other options available to him right now. However, the only way this is really going to work is if you pull the fishing boats with it. And also keep in mind, because Leenock went for the sails, he does move quicker, so it takes longer to gap close upon him. And at the end of that, just look how healthy Leenock is. We talked about this. It's the power of the step readout. It's done so much work for him. And even when it drains this gold vein dry, there's still another one right next to it. Trying to back up. Ooh, explosive junk, Leenock will target it. Ooh. That would have been heavy damage, but look at the heavy damage done to PuppyPaw. It means Leenock can just shift in. What, guys? Drunk driving? Wait, someone get the drunkard off of the wheel there. All right, that's not how you pilot a ship. I'm just pushing the other ship in quicker. No, you are trying to destroy our fleet from within. Clearly dissent is setting. They see war junks on both sides and they're confused as to which side they serve. But finally they will repurpose themselves as Leenock does target on the dock. Also able to snipe out reinforcements moving across the map. A small force here as well. PuppyPaw, this is not going to be good enough to breach Leenock. Leenock still has enough troops to defend himself at base. Now the docks are going down. PuppyPaw, he's running out of places to hide. You can see the Barbican was meant to protect him from this, but the range on the war junks is just too good. 6 tower range keeps him away from the Barbican Sun, allows him to open fire. PuppyPaw just switcheroo back and forth for the maximum fire. Will deter Leenock away for the moment, but Leenock, he's reproducing at a faster rate. PuppyPaw now struggling to match this, having only 1 dock at his disposal. And you're starting to feel like Leenock is pulling ahead, right? You can see it in the numbers very clearly. If I was to cover these up, like, you could have already got that sense with the way the naval fights are going and the land skirmishes just letting up for PuppyPaw. And the concern is PuppyPaw still hasn't really transitioned, right? He's got sucked in. The war junk spam began, and it never stopped. And despite the fact we've seen some evolutions of Boulder Bay and the way that people play it, this one is playing out like a standardized Boulder Bay. One opponent starts naval, the other one reacts. The other one invests. You invest. Whoever was behind almost always stays behind in that situation. And it's just an issue that's compounded by the fact that it is a Mongol versus a Chinese player on 1 TC with no economical benefits really for PuppyPaw.
once you reach Castle Age, this matchup in that scenario is very one-sided, which is why we're seeing Leenock with so much surplus resource and such a sizable army. Look at this now. 9 versus the 3. PuppyPaw is done in water. But his siege on land doesn't look anywhere near strong enough. In fact, I feel like he's outmassed here as well. 4 Lancers, 5 Spearmen, and a Dream. And that Dream quickly turns to a Nightmare as Leenock reveals his hand as well. Vastly ahead of PuppyPaw. And with this many war junks, this time Leenock will probably push him off the water. Pinned in the corner. Fire being baited into the docks. As Leenock cycles back and forth. Doesn't have the right formation to be doing maximum damage though. It seems he's a little bit paranoid about the Barbecue Sun. We'll start to shift in range now. Even the fishing boat's going down, and here we go. Leenock, it's time to do the dance. Just park yourself in there, spin circles, and take the win here. But Leenock, weirdly enough, is not doing the cycles. So he's actually not maximizing his damage and killing these units quick enough. But even with that all being said, and this is the crazy part, Leenock not even optimizing the way he's taking naval fights there, right? By doing the dancing on water, right? Doing the spins. He still takes a win again. Dock heavily damaged, 1 more junk remaining. And he's going to spot another one away. This PuppyPaw, he tried to get cheeky with this. Instantly gets blitzed. And I believe PuppyPaw, yeah, he needs to be careful. He still doesn't have the movement speed. Sales advantage is still there for Leenock. And here we go, a PuppyPaw. Oh, hello. Well, this is a little bit earlier than game 1, but this really was the turn point for him, right? Dropping keeps in his opponent's base. This time around, shouldn't it be a bigger advantage? Because PuppyPaw, he can build keeps, but Leenock cannot. We'll have to find out. As Leenock starts to shift back. Has got full naval dominance now, 20 fishing boats. That will pad him beautifully. And the concern at the moment is Leenock could do with more military infrastructure to build up an army. But here come the Trebs. Trebs that are just unanswered. Like, PuppyPaw has not built a full siege workshop. He's only got 14 villagers here. There's only so much work he can do. Also, look at his wood. He's being picked dry because he's gone back for the second TC and the Imperial Academy now at 21 minutes in. Make no mistakes, though, folks. This is not a power play. This is not you taking a lead and then pivoting. This is now you knee-jerk reacting to the state of the game. You no longer can match the economical benefits that Leenock's about to reap on the water, so your only choice is to fall back for TC and Imperial Academy into Song Dynasty Boom, which is going to put you at a huge disadvantage, something that Leenock should be wise to very quickly. One thing I'll give him credit for, though, PuppyPaw stationing keep placement like this will maybe Leenock think twice. The issue, however, is now Leenock is building up a sizable force. It is delaying him coming out of his base. But it's not hurting him to get out of his base, right? He's building these forces to break something that is doing no damage in return. And it means that once Leenock does break out, he's going to have a sizable military force to push across land with. Meanwhile, PuppyPaw, he doesn't even double-digit it. He's got 6 military pop cap right now. 6! At 22, almost 23 minutes in. Compared to the 61 of Leenock. Now, admittedly, there's only one number of difference between these two, but that number is added onto the end, so it's a pretty substantial difference. Now the Barbican on fire as well, and this is where Leenock just hits chill mode, right? Do whatever you want on sea. Has got to dress the final war junk. PuppyPaw, the last of his fleet. Can it be an MVP? Can it get free for the price of 1? I don't think so. It would involve a little bit of drunk sailing from Leenock. It would also require the fishing boats to not be baiting the shots. There we go. Yeah, he's just gone. Doesn't even finish off that war junk. 2 HP. The march out. Leenock, he could even pull a villager now to build a forward outpost. Treb's on the move. It's not going to take him long. And PuppyPaw is in trouble because look what he's doing. He's gathering on the deer. He went for the game that we talked about, right? The fallback plan. The fallback plan only works when you drop the walls forward of it, though. And so often we've seen this. When players put their palisades up this close to their base, they don't actually have this additional value of food on land. And they can't afford to transition to farms, and it means that PuppyPaw's in trouble. This keep isn't going to be success. Lancer's going to chase him down. PuppyPaw. That's a heavy hit into the village account. Just as he was looking to recover, Leenock is miles ahead now. Keep doesn't even get cancelled. No! Minus 800 stone. PuppyPaw, I almost feel like he's mentally done with this game. The fact that he didn't even delete that to save some of the stone says everything that needs to be said here. And PuppyPaw, he rebuilt the dock, but Leenock doesn't care anymore. He moves forward, Trebs almost in position. And they weren't even needed here. Keep went down without the assistance of them. And I think we are approaching a game number 3 because there's nothing left for PuppyPaw to do here. He went for the recoverability in his base, the scalability on land, but Leenock was just miles ahead of him, and you can just see it. It's just such a dominant force now. Almost pop-capped. PuppyPaw having half the overall population. Oh, this is all happening. Leenock, he doesn't skip a beat. He's teching up. The white stupa is being built. PuppyPaw, he was already at a severe disadvantage on the home field. And now that disadvantage is going to feel insurmountable. Tech up completing in just a few seconds for Leenock. And PuppyPaw, I think at this stage, he's stroking his chin, thinking, what can I pull out in game 3? Because we're going to need a third game. GG gets called. 1-1 is the score. It can now go either way. One game is all it's going to take. And then we say bye-bye to one of these two absolute beasts of players. Lower bracket, Redemption Arc, Golden League. PuppyPaw versus Leenock. It comes down to this, and it is a mirror matchup. French on high view. But soon someone's view is going to be very low. 6 feet under the ground, in fact. As whoever loses here is going to be eliminated from round number 2. Now, that does mean that they are not fully out of the tournament. But it does mean that their points are going to be pretty locked in. And as it stands right now, your boy Lee could do with some points, folks. Where people were expecting him to be versus where he actually is very different right now. So for those that haven't been checking out the scoreboards as it stands, I mean, PuppyPaw, he's already at the tippity top, right? He's in the top 8, I believe, and he'll definitely be in the top 8 at the end of this at this rate. Leenock is outside that. I believe he's 14th. He's matched neck and neck at 15 points with his current standing alongside Dinky King. So, Dinky, good to see him up there. But this isn't where you expect Leenock. That's no offense to Dinky. It's just that this was a guy at M4C. This was a guy who took it all the way. Top 2 finish at the biggest land so far. And so far, there's been a few kryptonite situations for him, right? When we think about how round 1 went for good old Big Lee, like he had a hard time with that when he went up against, I believe it was B that 2-0'd him. And now he finds himself in a similar situation up against the guy who actually beat B out. As PuppyPaw is dragging this one out the third game. And a French-on-French matchup, like, on high view, I'm trying to think who I've seen playing more of this. I have seen a lot of PuppyPaw French high view. So I feel like in terms of who's maybe more ready for this map, it does kind of lean towards him, like historically and currently. I haven't seen too much of Leenock playing French, especially on this map recently. And I think that's actually maybe a current issue. Is if you don't have a scrim partner, it's very hard to actually practice for the off-meta combat round because, well, you don't have any control over the map. And also, if you leave the map queue right now, you get a timeout because you're a naughty boy. You should have stayed there. And then on top of that, you might come in and say, I'm going to practice French on high view. And then your opponent might just go, I'm going to pick Rus, which isn't allowed under the rulings for high view. So opening-wise, first thing we probably got to look at is the gold. And already there, I see a slight discrepancy. You notice that PuppyPaw has a very retracted gold line in a very attractive location. Leenock's looks a little bit more ugly. Like, this is before, this is before the facelift and afterwards, really. Because you can see PuppyPaw, he's got these nice little choke points that he can wall in very quickly. That's actually going to secure his berries as well. And then he's got all these wood lines to work with, stone also. Look at Leenock. Gold. Exposed. Further away from his TC as well. Both of them to the north. A huge ass wall would be required here. It definitely feels like he got the short end of the stick here. And the importance of this is it does open up possibilities for PuppyPaw. Like, PuppyPaw could be a more active raider here with less forces required to defend him than Leenock would have to invest. And we'll have to see if he goes to that. Like, what I've seen a few players do when they get this type of ridiculous generation where all their wood lines are to the back like this is they will create palisade walls to create a funnel point. and then they'll drop a racks and build between 4 to 6 spearmen early on. And that usually is enough with bracing to hold their opponent back and do just heavy damage to any knights coming in. Meanwhile, PuppyPaw will just ride around Supreme, diving in and out and shaking it all about, and Leenock won't have much to do, except shake his head and say, what the hell happened here? So build up on the way, and we've got to check out the wheelbarrow situation. We've seen some funky builds so far today. It looks like neither one has got enough to invest in it just yet. I believe Leenock has just cracked the required quantity. The question is whether he wants to save for the first night. I feel like you can actually afford to start investing into wheelbarrow, and you'll have enough for the first night to come out in time. So it seems like it was just a little bit delay as he's microing elsewhere. It's weird because we have seen some players today wait until they've teched up, build their first night, and then go wheelbarrow. And it just doesn't make sense. Like, economically, the numbers, especially when you have this type of split where you've got this many people in food and just 3 people in gold, you will get enough gold to afford your first night by the time School of Cavalry is complete. Speaking of being complete, it looks like PuppyPaw does have a slight edge there. He is still lagging behind on the wheelbarrow, though. And he had 3 people on gold as well. This is a little bit surprising. The difference is he also has more people on wood, so this could suggest that he's going for the racks first, or maybe in the Palisades, and thus doesn't want to spend the 35 wood. But if you are going for the Palisades, that also makes me feel like the wheelbarrow is even better, just because of all the amount of walking time you're going to do left, right, and center. There we go. Tech up complete. This is actually one of the nice things about the choice, the ruling by EGC, by the way. Because there was an issue with scouts currently, they halved the attack speed of scouts, or rather doubled it. So, you know, there's half the time between attacks. It meant that you could actually stop your opponents from gathering resources because, remember, scouts, like most units, when they attack a villager, it interrupts the gathering. And this meant that you could deny your opponent in like minute 1 or 2 from accessing feudal quickly just with 1 or 2 scouts. It was really oppressive for Roos especially. But the cool thing about the ruling from EGC is that you can't attack the opponent starting gold, wood, berries, stone, right? So this area, you just can't attack the villagers working on there. You can attack them building, if I recall correctly, and any other resource they go to. But the reason this was a very smart ruling is it seems like it's going to be very oppressive, and it would hurt the Roos, and it would screw a lot of these kind of like early rush timings. But realistically, most civs are teched up in a feudal by 5 minutes, so it actually hasn't stung the core gameplay. So I just wanted to highlight that, because I think it was a really big shout out. Like, it was a reasonable mid-ground solution. We couldn't really rely upon tuning packs because it requires too much testing. And I just want to praise them for finding a reasonable mid-ground that, you know, isn't too hard to remember or follow. Scouts building up PuppyPaw. I think he's going for the Pro Scouts. Yes, he is. So that's why he forgoed the wheelbarrow. But this can backfire quickly. That's why he has to go for the racks. He now needs to get the spearmen out. And the deer are not nicely placed for him to gather up. I feel like this is very exposed. Right? Like, you've got the front deer, and then you've got the deer all the way over here. I prefer this type of opening when you have 2 deer sites close together, just because spears, you can actually defend them with a smaller quantity. However, in this situation, because the scout just moved in like that for Leenock, Leenock should see what his opponent is doing, and after going for the second stable, will likely fall back to an archery range. At which stage, PuppyPaw's hand is counterfeited. Let's engage in the meantime. Oh, and not a good trade for PuppyPaw there. And now he's in trouble. Uh-oh. Scouts have to ditch. And the 2-on-1 is not good for him. Because remember, think about this, like, mathematically. How many scouts did he invest in compared to his opponent? It's a difference here because it's 70 food each, which is why he's not able to actually buffer his opponent away right now. He does at least get 1 deer carcass back. Needs to be careful, though, because I know there is a weird bug right now where when you run out of sheep, I think it's to do with if you go on deer and then you run out of deer and switch over to sheep, your villagers get stuck in an idle animation where they just won't do anything. I haven't got the full details. I just know it's to do with the deer and sheep interaction. So that's something PuppyPaw needs to be careful with. It's another reason why right now Pro Scouts can feel a little bit funky, because if you do fall into this problem and you have like 10 villagers that get trapped, animation lock, not doing anything, not dropping off food, not gathering, you essentially just lost the game, right? Especially at an early stage, this can occur if you don't get enough carcasses. So Leenock continue to push out those knights. He's getting a healthy quantity out now. PuppyPaw does have the spears in the meantime. The problem is the spears are out of position to defend when he has to go collect the rest of these carcasses. That's the really big concern in this situation. Oh, nice start step. PuppyPaw couldn't quite stick on top of him. Tried for the orb walk after the first stab came out, but not able to stick it. However, Leenock can get stuck too by PuppyPaw as he wraps him with the knight there in the end. Lee, still no transition. Finally shifting across now, but he goes to the racks instead of the archery range. So just planning on out-microing his opponent more than anything. Nice clash there, gets the freebie on the knight. And the Spearman, because they rushed in, they didn't get the brace. Big mistake made there. So PuppyPaw will be forced to fight here. Takes maybe some slightly inefficient trades, especially when he targets out the scout. And he gets baited away by it as well. So in the end of that, Leenock able to hold outside his opponent's base. And the more important details now, these scouts might not be safe to run back in. Question is whether Leenock is going to suspect this is going on. And I think he knows. He's shifting there because he knows there's deer down in this area anyway, right? Like, he already scouted this area out. So his opponent either went for these deer or he went for Leenock's. And the only hope of PuppyPaw is if he hides in the tree lines long enough, Leenock might not see him. But Leenock splits up, and he has a scout as well. But he goes the wrong way. And it means that PuppyPaw is going to get a lot of food back to base. He's bringing back 1,050 food safely underneath his TC, gathered at a superior rate, a much-needed boost to his economy. What a beautiful play there. He gambled on it. He didn't go for the wrap south. He understood that would be a little bit too defensive, right? He needs to get that back quicker. He could have maybe split up and gone 2 and 2. Instead, he gambles on getting it all home, and it works out. He saw Leenock shifting to the south outside of his base and understood the most likely play for Lee is to go south to this deer site as opposed to holding the center, and it does cost Leenock dearly. Nice, in the meantime, we're poking a little bit. After that, Puppy now with a free eco lead. Bolstered economy. Has not got the wheelbarrow still. I've been seeing this out of Puppy. Like, he doesn't seem to be the biggest of fans of wheelbarrow. It kind of makes sense with his eco, right? Like, the gold line, the wood line don't have too far to run right now. It will definitely become more needed in the next minute or two. If his food was out on the berries and all these other pocket ecos, it makes a bit more sense. But now that he's back to the deer, they're fairly condensed. It does still seem a little bit surprising, though. And remember that the deer got buffed, right? Like, game gathering got buffed in general because now you hold a lot more food before needing the bank. It went up to 25, if I recall correctly. Wait, what's going on here? What? Oh, no. Oh, no! Oh, no! No, PuppyPaw, no! It's the bug. They went from deer to sheep, and now they're stuck. These 3 villages are not gathering. They're not doing anything. Oh, no. Oh, I mean, at least in this situation, it evens up the eco difference. That, in a deciding game, is vile to see, though. Oh, my God. He actually has 4. 4 of them are stuck doing this. And you know what makes it worse? They're underneath the TC, so PuppyPaw doesn't even realize they're doing this. He'll drop off more deer here pointlessly, and that means more of his villagers might be baited towards the sheep and the deer. And this could happen for even more of them. Oh my God, that breaks your heart. I never go Pro Scouts is appropriate. This was my concern, right? Like, with the changes, Pro Scouts already lost some value with the increased gathering capacity that you're able to carry in game. So you can just play pocket ecos. But this bug ensured that Pro Scouts is never the play. It's just too hard to predict. Oh my God. Okay, Leenock, we need to make this even. Can you go Pro Scouts, please? No, because at this rate, PuppyPaw's not going to leave any carcasses on the map for him to take. Oh my giddy aunt. And if that wasn't bad enough, PuppyPaw is losing more eco. And he'll probably think he's even after he extracted some value early on, but he's just not. How many are doing it now? That's... Oh, no. Please tell me it's not a 5th. Okay, one of them is not screwing up. I think the rest of these are okay as well. Thank goodness. But that's why the income per minute was shrinking. Like it should have been much higher at that stage. I mean, and this is the thing. It's one of those situations. Like I said, shout out to EGC for their ruling on the scouts. There's nothing they can do about this. I mean, I guess they could protect players from themselves by banning pro scouts. But, like, It's not the same as saying you can't harass with scouts early on, right? It's not manipulating a bug to get an advantage. It's just an unfortunate bug that exists. There's really nothing that EGC could do to fix this. This really is something that Relic needs to address fast. Because it's a game-breaking bug. Like, you already tried to tweak Pro Scouts. You already kind of devalued it further. And now, not only is it devalued, it's completely worthless due to this bug. Oy, oy, oy. And that's why Leenock is just starting to thrive. I mean, yeah, PuppyPaw, the only reason he's good on these numbers is because it is deer at the end of the day. However, the quantity of villagers who are actively gathering and are not bugged is becoming deer in itself. I'm just paranoid whenever they're moving around. I mean, that sheep is a death trap. I think there's still one sheep stuck there. I just hope it doesn't open to more of them. We'll have to check in later, and we'll know for sure. But for now, PuppyPaw starting to amass a force. We've been so distracted by this. There's a big fight that's going to start to emerge soon as their military count is increasing quickly. Nice, just distracting. Leenock is wrapping around now. Ooh, PuppyPaw. Being a naughty doggy. And that means Leenock's going to put him down. Taps one, can't get the other. PuppyPaw still chill in the center, though. He's not looking to advance towards his opponent's base. There is potentially a lot of exposed economy, because the difference here is that Leenock is playing Pocket Eco. This is where Knights can find more value, when your opponent has to come out and play. That's exactly the way PuppyPaw done this build. Every choice he's made here has been informed by the map generation. Because he got this generation, he walls himself in, and that's why he went Pro Scouts. He doesn't want to come out onto the map. Because if he does, he has to worry about static defenses to stop Night Raids. Meanwhile, in this situation, he can Night Raid with small quantities, and Leenock is going to struggle to stop it. Unless he can just bring the pressure to him, and that's what Leenock's starting to do. Forces amassing, and so many Knights in the mixer for Leenock. PuppyPaw relying on a lot of archers here, a lot of spears for Leenock in comparison. Fight underway, bracing comes out, engaged by the spears though. Knights trying to wrap around the side. PuppyPaw trying to reposition, trying to wrap around the back, but that just gives access to more poking coming his way. Front line is just going to flop down, and PuppyPaw is in a lot of trouble. Leenock can now advance forward. How do you replace those losses? How do you do it quick enough? Because you've only got two racks in fact, but 2 archer ranges. That's a heavy hit. Look at the end of that fight. PuppyPaw now down to 28. Leenock at 33. But how much of that is Knights? It's 11 Royal Knights still. Just checking in to see if the plague has spread to the rest of these villages. It looks like they are still good, except these ones. I think what makes it worse is the hitbox of the TCs. Like, you probably don't know they're doing this. You probably just think it's a deer, or like a sheep carcass or some crap down there. You just don't clock that you've got AFK villagers doing nothing here. I've never been a fan of that, actually. Like, the TC sizing is a little bit weird. The fact that you can actually hide sheep inside, like, the outskirts of your TC's walls, like, it's a very weird one. But I think that's also why this bug has gone unnoticed by a majority of players. I feel like a lot more people have been affected by it than they realize. It's just because it's being done right underneath your TC. You probably felt something was off in your game, but you couldn't put your finger on it. You know what? That's not going to stop Puppy from keeping his finger on the pulse. He's still competing, regardless of this. You can see on the numbers, in fact. Gold is the only thing going the way of Leenock. And it means that PuppyPaw can quickly afford to replace his army. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts considering floating up towards a castle age time. He does need to address the raids in, though. Especially with these wood lines starting to drain up. Give new ways into his base for the raids from the... Speaking of new ways, they're making their way in the back. Shift across. This is the awkward part, though. Static force. Shuffling back and forth across the base, and you see what Leenock's already done. He keeps the Knights in position, breaks the southern wall, and it means that PuppyPaw is going to be hard-pressed to defend on 2 fronts. Moves in. Spears. Pokes his opponent away, and now he's in with the Knights. And not many spears here. Enough to deter Leenock, though. He's paranoid about this. He's going to shift away and pull back for the moment. But while this pressure goes on in the base of PuppyPaw, notice what Leenock is doing. He's starting to move out onto all those pocket economies, stretching himself wide, making sure that he doesn't end up in a situation where he needs too many farms. Even if he does, though, as we can see, Leenock already invested in 12, so he's padded either way. Padded enough to do this. Tech up is ready for Leenock. And this is the perfect situation. PuppyPaw's locked in his base. He's not coming out anytime soon. He's invested hard into archers and spears, which means even if you now tech up and he sees it, the run it is going to be a marathon to get to Leenock's base. And in that time, techs will come through. And plenty of them as well. Because, you know, in this situation, with the standing army Leenock has, he's going to get value out of it. He'll instantly probably look to upgrade the knights. Archer's spears may be secondary. But just that bonus used up damage to the Royal Knights alone, with the health as well, is going to be the difference maker. And PuppyPaw, like, he doubled down. Because the deer's drying up, he needs all the wood he can get. It means instead of transitioning age, he's transitioning economy. He has a lot of room for farm at the back, but this is like the worst case situation for him. He has to do this. He knows he has to do this. He might suspect Leenock is teching up, but there's hell all he can do about it. In fact, look at the numbers for Leenock. He's already halfway to Imperial Age if he wants it. He probably won't go straight up in Imp, but what this does mean is he has plenty of surplus resource at the beginning of Castle Age to bolster his forces further. Whereas usually when people make this abrupt choice in the castle, their economy's weak. That's just not the case for Leenock. Horses go floppy floppy. Just Leenock constantly on the prowl, right? It's problematic. You pick one or two knights here or there, but like the problem that now PuppyPaw has is what's a really nice start to this map with this type of generation stings you later. And now he's going for the secondary TC. With finite resources, the reason you do this, by the way, is because you can't play safe anymore. So you need surplus villages that you can kind of throw away at these neutral areas. You might lose a few here or there, but it doesn't end up being the difference. If he was playing 1 TC and extends out, any villager lost stings him in this matchup because it would have been 1 TC versus 1 TC. But now with the secondary TC, he can actually just throw maybe 10 villages out into the gold line or onto the wood line over here on the other side. It doesn't end his game if he loses 10 villages. Leenock. Knight count is increasing. Veteran Royal Knights upgrade has come through. Is there a switch into Siege anytime soon, though? It looks like the switch up is Man at Arms, so not even looking for the Siege component. It looks to me like Leenock intends to just dive into the base, understanding that PuppyPaw has kind of constructed his own tomb here. He's got a lot of condensed economy stuck behind these walls. And when Leenock comes in, there is nowhere for them to run and hide. And he might get him for free. Lee! He spotted this out. He can actually ride in here, and he can send the Man-at-Arms on the east side as well. Oh, but the misclick. PuppyPaw gets saved by the auto-attack by the looks of it from Leenock, as Leenock was shifting him towards the town center. He could have done a lot of damage. Make no mistake, folks, if he rode in and just raided into the farmlands there and then shifted in with the Man-at-Arms as well, the eco deficit would have stung PuppyPaw, and I don't know if he would have been able to recover. Leenock just trying to protect that military lead, doesn't want to throw it away. Man-at-Arms now moving in. Knights are going to force the wood line away for Pup. He has got that secondary one going. But still so many villages. There's nowhere for them to hide here. He's pulled them back the wrong way. They need to be going towards the primary TC. And now look at the split up. Leenock holds back the spearman with a few and rushes into the wood line. Butchering time, he says. I'm looking to open a meat shop, and I'm hoping to sell some dodgy flesh. Do you know any peasantry I can maybe sign up for a butchering? PuppyPaw says, yes, I have an entire condensed economy that would look wonderful in your slaughterhouse. And after that, Leenock 69 of the 56. PuppyPaw, this secondary TC, it hasn't found its value, and this many spear will not stop him. Leenock, he turns on him. PuppyPaw realizes it's over. This series, hype from game 1 to game 2. But game 3 really did turn him back into a puppy. Leenock takes the series, keeps the dream alive. Wowee. What a play out of Leenock. His timings are really well understood. PuppyPaw kind of surprised here. I feel like he got baited in a little bit by the pro scouts and understood very quickly why you don't go for it. Because that bug cost him so much. Make no mistake, folks. 4 or 5 of his villagers early on, I think at a stage where he had maybe 10 villagers working on food, 4 of them got bugged. That stunted everything. That slowed down everything about his game. I don't know if he realized when he went for the second TC that's what had happened, or if the second town center was a reactionary choice because his opponent teched up ahead of him. But that bug alone, I think, stopped this from looking like a close series. That's no discredit to Leenock. He actually played these fights fantastically well. Like, he stretched himself to the right length. He got optimal engagements
especially that big fight between about 40 troops on each side, like the way he spread out his line and the way that he denied any access to the back line for PuppyPaw was critical to taking a win there. But I do still feel for Puppy. It's unfortunate the way this happened. Just to recap, because I know it's a lot of people going, what's the bug? What's the bug? It's not an advantageous bug, folks. You're not going to use it to win your games. I will tell you so you can avoid losses. It's when your villagers switch between deer and sheep, they start gathering from the sheep. So if they automatically switch from deer to sheep, they will start gathering on the sheep, and they'll gather up to 10, and they'll never bank that 10. But they won't register that they're for full inventory, so they'll just keep gathering, and you can't even reassign them. So they just get stuck there. Honestly, it looks like some weird old kind of witch lady looking through sheep guts to tell the future, right? They're just rummaging. You're like, are you done yet? We're kind of getting hungry back in base, but that's exactly what was happening for poor Puppy. His eco was getting a little bit too starved, and it definitely put him behind. And we talk about how often the smallest differences really do make everything in mirror matchups. And having 4 of your early villagers essentially looking for the lost wedding ring inside a sheep carcass, yeah, that's a pretty big difference. Gives Leenock the win, keeps his dream alive as he continues through, and it means that PuppyPaw, although he still has a solid placement at the top of the leaderboards for Golden League so far, his journey in round 2 does end here.